Okay, let's talk about something huge today, something that, well, it feels really relevant, maybe even a bit overwhelming for Christian singles.
Mm-hmm.
If you're hoping to find your spouse, you know the whole dating scene.
Hmm.
It just changed so much, hasn't it?
Well, dramatically.
Maybe you've even felt that little nudge, to look beyond your usual circles, like your church friends, your small group.
Because so much connection is happening online now, it's just a fact of life.
Exactly. You see it everywhere. People meeting on Instagram, in Facebook groups, maybe even, yeah, on dating apps designed for Christians. It's actually pretty normal now.
It really is. The digital world, it's not just for, cat videos and keeping up with Aunt Mildred anymore. It's become a place where real relationships start.
Mm.
And yeah, that includes relationships leading all the way to marriage. We see it happening. DMs on Twitter, Instagram comments, those Facebook groups, or yeah, those dedicated Christian dating apps. It's really moved from being kind of weird to totally mainstream.
Absolutely. So for you listening, if you're Christian and navigating this, the big question isn't really if it's possible to meet someone online. I mean, we see it happens.
They do.
The deeper questions, the faith questions, are more like, should I even be looking online? And if I do, how do I do it? Like, how do I do it in a way that honors God, keeps him right in the middle, and honestly, protects my own heart?
That really is the core of it, isn't it? It's about taking that timeless biblical wisdom and figuring out how to apply it to this very modern situation.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we want to get into today. How can Christian singles approach this online world, specifically looking for marriage, but do it wisely? Seeking God every step of the way.
Looking at the pitfalls, but also the practical steps.
Exactly, helping you discern your own path in all this.
Okay, let's jump right in. And I guess the first thing, like you said, is just acknowledging how completely normal meeting online is now.
It's undeniable. I mean, think back maybe 10, 20 years ago, saying you met online might have sounded a bit, I don't know, desperate. Or unusual, at least.
All right, a bit niche.
Yeah. But today,
Yeah.
it's just another way people connect. Honestly, we hear stories all the time. Couples who met through some online platform. And yes, many of those end up being really strong, Christ-centered marriages.
And it's not just the dating sites, is it? That's the thing.
No, not at all. That's a key point. You could connect with someone who comments on the same YouTube video about theology. Or maybe you're both in a Facebook group for Christian creatives.
Or you bond over a mission project you both follow on Instagram.
Exactly. The ways those initial connections can happen have just, well, exploded.
So because of that, the question for a Christian single has kind of shifted, hasn't it?
It really has.
Yeah.
It's less about whether the method itself, meeting online, is okay. I mean, as a way to initiate contact, sure, it's a valid method. The real questions, the spiritual ones, the practical ones, are about how you engage with it.
Is it aligning with your faith? Are you doing it wisely?
Precisely. Are you bringing discernment to the table?
So let's be clear then. It is possible to meet and marry someone you first connect with online.
Yes. Full stop. Possible.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
There's a big but. The conclusion isn't just, yeah, go for it. It's more like, yes, it's possible, but, and that but is huge. It means you absolutely have to approach the whole thing.
The whole process.
The entire process. From that very first message, maybe all the way to the wedding day. You need a much higher level of awareness, intentionality, prayer, spiritual discernment.
More so than if you just met someone at church.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Because when you meet someone organically, say in your church community, there are often built-in layers, right? Shared context, maybe mutual friends, accountability.
You see them in action more easily.
Exactly. Online, you don't have that automatically, so the responsibility is really on you to navigate it wisely.
Okay, that distinction is so important. It puts the onus on the individual. So let's talk about this online space itself. You called it a digital ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
How should we view it from a faith perspective? Is it like inherently good or bad for finding a spouse?
That's a great question, and the answer is, it's neither. Think of it like a big public space, maybe a giant marketplace, or a huge park with lots of different paths and corners.
Okay.
It's basically a neutral tool, a venue. How it impacts you, whether it's good or bad, really depends on the people using it and how they're using it.
All right, so paint that picture a bit more. This marketplace or park, what kind of variety are we talking about?
Well, imagine walking through that massive park. You're going to find all sorts of people, right? Just like in any public space.
Mm-hmm.
You'll definitely find people who are genuinely there for the right reasons. serious intentions, looking for a godly spouse, ready for marriage.
Okay, the ones.
The good ones. But right next to them, you'll find folks who are completely unserious. Maybe they're just bored, looking for a distraction, maybe some validation.
Just casual chats, nothing deep.
Exactly. No long-term goals in mind at all.
What about the spiritual side? If someone looks Christian online, can you trust that?
Ah, that's a big one. Absolutely not, unfortunately. You will meet genuinely spiritual people, deeply committed, involved in church, truly seeking God, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But you will also encounter people who are, frankly, masters at putting up a spiritual front online. They know the lingo, they can quote the verses, talk a really good game.
It's just talk.
It can be. Their
Okay.
actual life, their character, their real intentions might be totally different. Some might be intentionally deceptive. Others may be just presenting an idealized version they wish was true.
So you could bump into someone genuinely lonely.
Yes, absolutely. Someone looking for real connection.
Yeah.
But you could also, sadly, encounter predatory people looking to exploit that loneliness or vulnerability.
Wow.
You'll find people who seem ready for commitment, who talk about marriage responsibilities, and others who are just projecting an image of readiness that doesn't match their actual life at all.
It sounds like you need radar up, like all the time.
You really do. It's like that marketplace again, or that beautiful park. There are wonderful people there, genuine opportunities. But just like you wouldn't walk through a huge, unfamiliar park at night without being aware,
Right.
you need to be aware online. Use wisdom. Watch out for people who might not be who they seem. It can look so appealing, full of exciting possibilities, but you just have to approach it with caution, with discernment grounded in your faith.
That image. A beautiful place, but with hidden thorns or pitfalls. That's really sticking with me. So given that presentations can be so polished online, what's like the #1 mistake Christians make when they connect with someone this way? The most dangerous one.
I think the biggest, most common danger is falling for the online presentation.
The curated version.
Exactly, falling for that instead of really insisting on getting to know the actual messy, real-life person. Profiles, messages, even video calls, they're all filtered to some extent.
You pick the best photos you think before you type.
Right. You share the highlights, you carefully word things, you're essentially creating an idealized avatar, a screen presence.
And it's easy to fall for that avatar, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially if the connection feels strong.
Oh, incredibly easy. And it happens so fast online, doesn't it? You see a great profile, the chats are amazing, maybe they say all the right spiritual things, and boom. Feelings develop, attachment grows.
You're building a relationship with the idea in your head.
You're building it with the idea of the person based on the limited, curated info they've given you, not necessarily with the full, complex, imperfect human being they are offline.
I can totally see how that sets you up for disappointment. Or worse, yeah, missing major red flags.
Absolutely. And this ties right into the next really critical point. The danger of letting your emotions just completely run the show and override your spiritual discernment.
Yes. The feelings, they get loud.
They get very loud, especially at the beginning. You connect with someone new, the online banter is great, maybe there's that initial spark, that chemistry.
Yeah.
It feels fantastic.
Except
Super exciting, the long chats, sharing deep thoughts, maybe even spiritual insights. It all feels so good, and you start thinking, wow, this connection, it feels so strong, this must be God.
and those feelings, they can really feel like confirmation, right? Like God saying, yes, this is it.
They feel like confirmation. That's the key word.
Yeah.
Feel. But those feelings are not necessarily God's confirmation. Things like a nice profile pic, Bible verses in the bio, those deep chats. They trigger strong emotions, a sense of, this is special, this is destiny.
But those emotions,
They get incredibly loud in your head and heart.
loud enough to drown out other things,
Yeah.
like maybe warning signs or God's quiet voice.
Precisely. Your own emotions, your hopes, your desires, they start shouting.
Yeah.
And they can easily just overwhelm that quieter voice of spiritual wisdom, discernment, maybe even just basic common sense. You get emotionally attached really fast.
Before you've really done the work.
Often way before you've taken the time to genuinely seek God's view or to see them outside the screen or to even know if the connection is real substance or just, infatuation based on that curated image.
So the danger is getting emotionally hooked before you've actually discerned if this is wise, if it's godly.
That's exactly it. And then once you're too emotionally invested, too early on, your ability to see clearly is just It's compromised, seriously
You
compromised.
start explaining things away.
You might miss inconsistencies, you might ignore little warning signs, or you rationalize things that, if you were objective, would give you pause. Your feelings are telling you what you want to be true.
Yeah.
And that makes it incredibly hard to evaluate the situation honestly, or to hear if God might be whispering, hold on, or not this one.
It's like your own excitement puts blinders on you.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Oh.
So look, meeting online, just a way to get introduced. But rushing into deep emotional connection or making big assumptions about marriage based only on online interaction, that's genuinely dangerous territory. You're building on sand,
Yeah.
essentially.
A foundation that hasn't really been tested in the real world.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. The online world just speeds up the emotional part based on limited info. So how do you fight that? If you shouldn't rush based on the presentation and the early feelings, what's the wise way forward?
Okay, so the key, precisely because you start by only seeing what they choose to show you, is you have to be incredibly intentional, proactive,
Yeah.
about getting to know the real person,
Not just letting it happen.
not just letting it happen. You have to actively dig deeper than just those easy, surface-level chats, the shared laughs, the spiritual-sounding banter that flows so easily online.
Okay, intentionality. What does that actually look like? What kinds of things should you be trying to understand that you can't just see on a profile?
You need to steer the conversation, gently but firmly, towards understanding their authentic relationship with God. Not just, are you a Christian? Tick. Not just, what's your favorite verse?
Right, the easy questions. Yeah. But what does their walk with God look like day to day when they're not talking to you? What are their spiritual habits? Do they pray, read the Bible? Are they
Yep.
practicing disciplines? What does it look like offline?
That's way beyond just checking the Christian box.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And critically important, what's their spiritual accountability like? Are they actually connected to a local church? And I don't just mean showing up occasionally.
Like plugged in.
Are they committed? Serving? Do they have mentors, friends, church leaders who really know them, who speak into their life? Accountability is so vital for Christian maturity. Its presence or absence tells you a lot about character, humility.
Can they introduce you to their pastor, maybe? Or their small group leader?
That's a huge indicator. Having people in their life who can vouch for them, who know their walk, that's massive.
Okay. What else?
And then you've got the foundational stuff for marriage. Beliefs,
Yeah.
values. You have to intentionally explore these, even if it feels a bit awkward early on. Things like their understanding of sex within marriage, obviously, how they view money, handle finances.
Oh, finances. Big one.
Huge. Their perspective on roles in marriage, mutual submission, leadership, views on family, kids, parenting. These are areas where major disagreements later can cause immense pain.
And trying to figure that out after you're already engaged,
Yeah.
that's a nightmare.
It's incredibly difficult, yeah. So having these conversations intentionally, appropriately paced, of course, you don't dump it all on date one, but making sure they happen is part of wise discernment.
Good.
And something else that's strongly advised, don't rush physical intimacy or even super deep emotional intimacy too quickly.
Why is that so critical here?
Because when you bring in physical affection or you get really deeply emotionally entangled too soon, especially before you truly know the person in real life, before you have that solid foundation of trust and real understanding, it just clouds your judgment massively.
It adds more of that loud emotion we talked about.
Exactly. It makes it even harder to discern God's will and see clearly. Infatuation just loves intimacy, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it's fueled by that idealized online image. So the consistent wisdom is give the relationship time, ample time. Let it develop naturally. There's absolutely no need to rush. Time lets that initial infatuation maybe settle down so you can see more clearly.
See if there's substance underneath.
Exactly. Time allows those little inconsistencies between the online persona and the real person to maybe surface. It lets you observe their character over weeks and months, not just their highlight reel from a few chats. Patience isn't a roadblock. It's actually part of the discernment process.
Patience and intentionality. Powerful tools against the online speed and curation. Okay, so through all this intentionality, this slowing down, where does God actually fit in? It sounds like he could get lost in the strategy.
He needs to be absolutely central, not just, mentioned in passing or prayed about occasionally. The wisdom here really emphasizes this. It even suggests you should be praying more than you're talking, especially in those early stages.
Praying more than talking. That sounds hard, especially when you're excited about someone.
It does sound counterintuitive, I know. But think about it like this. All that excitement, the attraction, the chemistry we talked about, they're really loud voices in your head and heart, right?
Definitely.
They can fill up your thoughts constantly. But God's guidance, his wisdom, those gentle nudges, his peace, or maybe the lack of peace, often comes as more of a quiet whisper.
Okay.
So if your mind and heart are just constantly buzzing with the noise of this new relationship, how are you going to hear that whisper? Intentionally spending more time in prayer than, say, texting or calling helps quiet that internal emotional noise. It helps attune your spirit to listen for God's voice.
That's a powerful image. Quieting the internal noise to hear the whisper.
It is. And there's even a kind of model prayer suggested for this exact situation. It's a really surrendered prayer.
What does it sound like?
It's basically saying, Lord, if this person, this connection that started online, if it's not your will for me, I am asking you, please interrupt it, shut it down, make it clear, and please do it now before I get too deeply emotionally invested, before it gets really painful to let go.
Wow. That's bold.
It is. And then the second part is, but Lord, if this is your will, if this is the path you're leading me on, then please give me your profound peace about it. Grant me absolute clarity as we move forward, and give me the patience, the wisdom, the discernment I need to walk this out entirely in your way, honoring you in every single step.
That takes real trust. Asking God to actively stop something if it's wrong.
It requires a genuine willingness to lay down your own desires, your hopes for this specific person, and trust God's ultimate plan for your life. Trusting that his plan is better, even if it means letting go of something that feels really good right now.
And then what? After you pray that?
And the key is, wait, watch. And listen, be patient, don't rush. Observe their life, their character, see how things unfold over time, and actively listen in your prayer time, through wise counsel from others, through circumstances, through that inner sense of peace or unease. Listen for how God seems to be responding.
It really demands humility, doesn't it? And deep trust in God's sovereignty.
It absolutely does, but the encouragement is there too. The same God who orchestrated relationships in the Bible, think Isaac and Rebekah, Ruth and Boaz, he's still actively involved today. He can absolutely use modern tools like DMs or dating apps to make an introduction.
He's not limited by technology.
Not at all. But, and this is crucial, he only truly leads those who are willing to follow. And following sometimes means being obedient when he guides you away from a relationship, even one that looks promising on the surface, because it's not his best for you.
Oof. That's a tough truth.
Right.
But essential for real discernment. Okay, so we've covered the online space, the emotions, asking the right questions, keeping God central. All of that happens largely online or in your own heart and mind. But before things get truly serious, what's the absolute cannot skip it step?
This might be the single most critical piece of advice when it comes to online relationships heading towards marriage. Texting, calls, video chats, they're great tools, especially for distance. Valuable. But they're fundamentally absolutely insufficient for knowing someone well enough to marry them.
Not enough.
Not nearly enough. The non-negotiable essential step is this. You must spend significant time seeing and interacting with this person in real life, face to face, in their environment, in your environment, in neutral spaces.
You can't marry the screen persona. We talked about that.
You absolutely cannot marry a curated online presence. You're marrying a real human with real habits, real quirks, real reactions, real interactions with the world around them, things you simply cannot fully grasp through a screen.
So why is real life so non-negotiable?
Yeah.
What do you see then that you don't see online?
Because it's the only way to observe their uncurated behavior. Online, they control the narrative, the presentation. They can always put their best foot forward. In real life, especially over time and in various situations, you see how they act when they're not consciously on or when things don't go perfectly.
Okay, give me some examples. What should someone be looking for when they finally meet in person or spend extended time together?
Great question. Pay close attention to the little things. How do they treat people they don't need to impress? Service staff, waiters, cashiers, cleaners? Basic kindness and respect there.
Yeah, that's telling.
How do they handle stress? Minor frustrations, like the GPS messes up or plans change suddenly. Do they roll with it, get irritated, angry? How do they interact with their friends? Is the person you see with their buddies the same person you talk to online? Does their conversation align?
Seeing their context, their community is vital too, right?
Oh, crucially important. Meeting their family when the time is right obviously gives you huge insights. How do they relate to the people who've known them forever? And if possible, meeting their pastor or spiritual mentors. That's invaluable. These are people who can hopefully speak honestly about their character, their spiritual journey, their accountability.
Things you can't just ask the person directly and expect a fully objective answer.
Exactly, and even simpler things. Seeing their living space, observing their habits when they're not on a scheduled call. How do they manage their time day to day? How do they handle everyday little challenges? These things reveal character so much more deeply than online chats ever can.
It's the mundane, the everyday reality that shows the true person, not just the curated highlights.
Precisely. The advice is really direct here. Don't marry a screen presence. Marry a real person with a real life, living in a real context. You have to see that whole picture before you can make a wise, discerning decision about marriage.
Okay, but what about distance? That's a big factor for many online connections. What if meeting often or soon is just really hard, logistically or financially?
That's a very common challenge, and it needs wisdom. If meeting in person regularly is difficult, the advice isn't to just give up on meeting or to proceed as if online is enough. It's actually the opposite. You need to take things even slower.
Slower. Why
Sure.
slow?
Because the lack of regular, real-life observation creates blind spots. So you compensate by being even more diligent in prayer, even more observant during your video calls. Watch body language, listen between the lines, notice their environment, look for consistency over time, and, crucially, you absolutely must involve trusted outside voices more heavily.
Bringing in reinforcements,
Oh,
like mentors, wise friends.
exactly. You need objective perspectives from people in your own life who love you and know you. Share what's happening. Let them ask you hard questions. Let them maybe even talk to the person online, if appropriate. They can help spot things you might miss because of your emotions or the distance. Distance increases the need for caution, patience, prayer, and that external accountability.
That's really practical. Grounding the online excitement with reality checks and outside input. Okay, so pulling this all together, it really sounds like where you meet online, offline is actually less important than the process you follow afterwards.
That's exactly the conclusion, that initial meeting point. Whether it was a DM, an app, or bumping into each other at a church potluck, that's not what determines if the marriage will be godly or successful.
It's just the starting line, not the whole race.
Beautifully put. What truly matters, what makes the difference, is the process that both people commit to walking out together. And most critically, how much that process is genuinely guided by and centered on God. The online intro was just that, an intro. The relationship gets built step by step from there, using wisdom, regardless of where step one happened.
And you mentioned different kinds of growth or pursuit within that process, not just falling in love.
Yes, that's a vital distinction. It's easy, especially online, to just fall in love, that rush of feelings based on initial attraction and connection. But the goal isn't just falling, it's intentionally growing in love.
Growing, like it takes work.
It's a daily choice, guided by God's word, by His Spirit, choosing to love, to serve, to cherish the other person. Understanding love as a verb, an action, not just a fleeting feeling. It requires effort, commitment, grace.
Okay, growing in love, not just falling. What else?
And instead of only chasing that feeling of romance, that intense in-love high, the focus should shift towards pursuing a shared purpose, grounded in God's calling for your lives, both individually and together.
Like, does this relationship help me serve God better?
Exactly. Does being with this person draw you closer to Christ? Do you share a vision for impacting the kingdom? Does the relationship bring genuine spiritual peace, not just butterflies? That's a much deeper, more solid foundation than just chemistry or having the same favorite movie.
Definitely deeper.
And one final crucial point on this: don't just aim to marry a Christian, someone who checks the box. Aim to marry someone who is actively, intentionally becoming more like Christ.
The difference between a label and a lifestyle.
Precisely. Someone whose faith is alive, dynamic, not static. Someone who's demonstrably growing in character, in humility, in maturity, in devotion. Someone striving, imperfectly of course, but striving daily to live out God's truth in all areas of their life, including the messy parts you don't see online at first. That active pursuit of Christ-likeness, that's what makes someone a true partner in a godly marriage.
That distinction, a Christian label versus actively pursuing Christ-likeness, that feels absolutely fundamental for a healthy marriage, no matter how you meet.
It speaks volumes about their character, their teachability, their willingness to grow, all essential for navigating life together.
Okay, so for that listener right now, maybe wrestling with this, maybe they met someone great online, maybe they're thinking about trying an app. Is it okay? What's the final word?
The clear but qualified answer is yes. Is it okay for a Christian to marry someone they met online? Yes, absolutely.
Okay, green light. But those qualifications are everything, aren't they?
They are everything. It's a yes, but. Yes, but walk wisely. Be discerning, be shrewd. Don't be naive about the online world and its potential pitfalls. Yes, but guard your heart diligently. Protect your emotions. Don't let them run ahead of God's timing and clear guidance. Take it slow. And yes, but intentionally invite God into every single step. Make prayer your default. Seek his wisdom constantly. Keep him absolutely central.
Walk wisely, guard your heart, keep God centered. That's the approach in a nutshell.
That really sums it up.
Yeah.
And maybe the final thought to leave everyone with is this: the platform where you met. Ultimately, it doesn't determine your marriage's success or godliness. It's not about how you met.
It's about what comes next.
It's about what you both bring to the relationship, your character, your genuine faith, your commitment to Christ, your commitment to each other, and most importantly, who is at the very center of it all? Is it just the two of you trying to make it work? Or is it Almighty God guiding, sustaining, and sanctifying your union?
That really puts the focus back where it belongs, on the people involved and their foundation in Christ, regardless of the modern tools used to connect. This has been so helpful, so practical, really grounding wisdom for a modern reality.
It's just remembering God's sovereign, but he calls us to be wise, prayerful, active participants in the journey he has for us.
So as you listening or reflecting on all this, maybe take a moment to consider how you're guarding your heart right now in your relationships, whether they started online or off. Are feelings driving the bus, or are you actively trying to hear God's quieter voice?
Yeah, are you focusing more on that shiny online presentation, or are you intentionally trying to understand the real person, their character, their actual walk with Jesus?
Maybe even pause after this and pray that surrendered prayer we talked about, asking God to intervene if it's not his will, and for peace and patience if it is. It takes courage, but it's powerful.
And think about that non-negotiable step.
Right.
Real life. Are you prioritizing seeing the person in their actual context? Are you involving trusted voices, mentors, wise friends, family to give you perspective? Don't try to do this alone.
This journey of building healthy, godly relationships, it's ongoing, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's always more to learn, more ways to apply God's wisdom. This conversation today, it's just one piece, looking at online dating for Christians. But there's so much more to explore about communication, conflict, growing together.
Absolutely. We really encourage you. Keep seeking that wisdom. Talk about these things with people you trust. And above all, keep prioritizing God's guidance in every relationship decision.
Stay connected with us as we keep digging into these vital topics, helping you build relationships that truly honor Christ and are set up to flourish. There's definitely more to explore together.